Alright, you guys, this video is going to be on carrier takeoff and landing in simulator battles. You are stuck to the cockpit only. They did add a nice feature that when you're on the ground, you can look outside your aircraft when you're not moving. As soon as you go over like 3 kilometers an hour, it might be a little faster than that. It puts you back in cockpit view automatically. In this, I'm just in a test flight right now, and I have it on the realistic controls. That's why you saw that. That's why you saw this view. But I'm gonna show you guys how to do this all in the cockpit. And right now I'm in the F4F. This plane has it has decent visibility out the front. Not so much in the back though. And so I landed. I took off from the runway over under that, but probably behind that bar. And I came and landed on the carrier, and then I taxied myself to the side because sometimes you get spawned like not this drastic, but I made it drastic just to show you guys what to do if you do get spawned on this side. So to start, we're gonna taxi ourselves on the carrier deck, like to the center of the carrier and back there a ways. So we'll go ahead and start the engine. Ooh, that engine. Oops, that engine is really loud. Okay, that's better. To start moving at a safe speed, 20% throttle is pretty good. So what I'm going to do here is, if you have a joystick, you might have your brakes hotkeyed for left. You can hotkey left and right brakes. On controller, the brake is combined with the decelerate button, but there's kind of a neat way that it works, where if you hold the accelerate and decelerate buttons at the same time, your throttle stays in the same spot, but your brakes are applied. So to start, we'll just go at 20%, and we'll start moving. And I'm using my rudder to move the nose of my plane to the right. So we'll just get her turning. It'll move slow, like I'm only going 2 kilometers an hour. But now I'll hold both the A and B button, and I'll put my brakes on it. I'll pivot on my inside wheel. Oh, I might need more throttle. So I'll go up to 30, turn it, and then get off the brakes. And then we'll taxi down. Because one thing I notice when anytime there's a carrier takeoff map, most people get spawned on the side, and there's poor straight ahead visibility out of the plane, and they just punch it and just hope for the best. And they don't realize that you can drive around on these carriers. And obviously in a live match, the carrier is going to be moving, so it's going to be bouncing around and bouncing you around a little bit. But I mean, if you just take your time and just putt along, you don't have to move fast. Like, I'm going 4 kilometers an hour right now. And then we got to the end of the runway, so we'll hit our brake and our gas, pivot around, need more gas, pivot around, get off the gas, get on the brake, still need some more. We'll point it straight down the runway. You want to be able to see the tower on the right hand side of your plane, and from here, in the last video, I'm gonna go ahead and turn my engine off just so it's quiet. From my last video, we talked about your engine torque and how it rolls and yaws the aircraft to one side or the other, depending on which way the engine is turning. So having flown this aircraft multiple times, I know that it's going to want to torque me to the left on takeoff, and it's also a fairly nose-heavy plane, so it's going to want to nose over pretty quickly. And the one thing when you're doing carrier takeoff is you don't have nearly as much runway to gain speed. So what a lot of naval planes are equipped with, and all planes or a lot of the planes in the game, are takeoff flaps. And what this does is lowers the flap underneath the wing, as you can see, and it increases the surface area underneath the wing, providing more lift, along with a lot more drag. So at you won't be able to reach as high of speeds if you accidentally leave these takeoff flaps on. So remember to, or try your best to remember to go back to raised flaps after takeoff. But these are definitely useful with carrier takeoff. So with that being said, once I start the engine, I'm going to put the throttle to 100%, even WEP maybe, and I'm going to be prepared to yaw to the right because I know the engine's going to torque to the left. And so if you hop in a plane, or if there's naval maps you know of in the rotation of sim battles, make sure you come to test flight and figure all this stuff out before you're doing it in game, where before you waste free repairs or even have to pay for just accidentally driving off the end of the runway because you were unprepared for an engine torque the opposite way or something. So going ahead, I'm going to just straight up put it to 100%, and I'm ready for the right hand yaw and that I need to apply to keep it going straight down the runway. So here we go. And if you want to make sure you're straight, what's nice about the game is you can hop into third person. I'm not totally straight, but it is straight enough. I could correct it really easy just by going to 20% and turning it just a little bit. So now I'm straight. And so back in cockpit, we're going to push to 100. And I'm ready for that right hand. I'm applying right hand, and I'm getting ready for the nose over, and it comes right there. This plane's fairly good about it. And then at the end of the runway, you just pull up. Raise your gear. And raise your flaps. And you're airborne. And so, now that we're airborne and undamaged, we're going to attempt a carrier landing. I say attempt because I am still not very good at carrier landing. And so I'm going to do a flyby of the carrier, and to show you guys the, you see the white lines on the carrier? And there's 5 of them, but the ones you want to pay attention to are those 2, in between those 2, and in between those 2, because that is where the cables are strung. There's no cables in the middle, if you can see that. Or are there? There are cables in the middle. There's cables all the way down. So Gage made it easy for us by putting like 30 cables on the aircraft carrier to hit. It looks like, yeah, there's a lot of cables on there to hit. So the biggest thing is your approach. Normal, like, if you're just coming in for ammo, you're undamaged, it should be fairly straightforward. You want to approach the carrier and you want to do a flyby, and you can do it at full speed. And the reason you do this is, one, we can't see our tail, so we're going to do the flyby. Just if there's somebody chasing us, our carrier will open up on him, and then we know that it's not clear to land. So you do your flyby, and then you back off your throttle, put your gear and flaps, and then much like there's a tutorial in game on carrier landing. So much like the carrier landing tutorial, we keep checking the position of the carrier as we're preparing for final. And you don't need a lot of throttle. We've increased our lift a lot with our landing flaps. So 50% throttle will keep us at a decent speed. Plus the altitude loss we will gain speed too. So we prepare for final. I kind of overshot the turn a little bit. And then we're going to back off the throttle 30%. And we'll coast it in. If we see us slowing down too much, which I am, I'm going to get back in the throttle. And you want to aim to touch your wheels down at the back of the carrier. And then you cut your throttle and you just bounce it off the deck. And what bouncing it does is you bounce your momentum of hitting the deck, it puts your tail down and puts your landing hook onto the cables on the deck. It's really, a plane like the Zero is much harder to land on the carrier. It takes a much slower speed, and it's a lot harder to get the tail to come down when you hit the carrier deck. But that's just something that you need to test fly and get good at before you apply it in the actual in-game or the online part of the game. And once you get good in test flight at carrier takeoffs and landings, they are worth a lot of RP. I want to say a takeoff is not worth that much. It's probably worth maybe 15 to 20 RP, but a landing is double that, like 40 to, 30 to 40 probably RP, which is half of a kill. A kill is around 100. So if you just want to practice, if you've already practiced enough in test flight, but you want to earn some experience for it, go ahead and just take off and land, take off and land, take off and land, until you feel like you just don't want to do it anymore, and you'll make decent amount of RP just by taking off and landing. And granted, you want to be good at it to gain experience for it, because as soon as you crash, you have to wait for another game. So you don't want to be crashing. You want to be making RP. You want to be able to rely on, if your plane is damaged, to land on the carrier as well, which is really, really hard. But it's still completely possible. So with that being said, that's the basics of carrier takeoff and landing and taxiing on the carrier. If you go anywhere above 30% in your throttle in taxiing, you're going to be going way too fast. So in 20 to 30 is a nice window where you just putt around, and you can use your brakes really easy to do nice pinpoint turns to get yourself into position. So I guess that is it. I will still laugh at you if you go flying off or rip your wing off on the tower of the carrier, because it makes my day every time I see that. Along with people hitting tents and hitting guard towers on the regular runways. It puts a smile on my face, and I love seeing it, but it does get old when you lose half your team at the first 10 seconds of the game. So practice it in test flight first before you go out in the real world of sim battles and ruin your face on a tent. Alright, you guys. Until the next video, we'll see ya.